Okay. So all AmeriCorps programs have their members involved in reporting. So it's not just you getting stuck with this duty while you're with Homes for All. And it's just one more thing that connects you to what every other AmeriCorps member is doing. So the services that you provide are really significant, and that's because you're directly involved in people's housing and getting them housing. So why wouldn't we want to capture that impact? It's really important. Oh gosh, you guys. There we go. So reporting on your service and what you're doing is not only about capturing stuff for our program, it helps you, reflect on the impact that you've made. The data just doesn't sit in our office or go into like some file cabinet to be never looked at again. We are reporting on this throughout the year to our stakeholders and AmeriCorps at large and the Corporation for National and Community Service. So at the front end, again, you are capturing your impact. But when we're collecting the data from you, it can help us demonstrate the value of AmeriCorps to our sites. It helps us recruit more sites so we can continue making an impact in the housing world. And it can show our communities what a difference AmeriCorps makes. Again, we also send that information to AmeriCorps and the Corporation for National and Community Service. That's the federal agency that oversees AmeriCorps. And that collection is part of what drives Congress to continue funding AmeriCorps. So we don't want to lose that vital funding because it would take away the programs in our communities. So. Again, these are our program goals. So we want to be providing services to 2,500 people during the year. And I know that quantitative data only provides like one snapshot of the whole story, and we're not trying to reduce the people that you serve to a statistic or a number, because people are more than that. They have, dignity and worth. And so they're not just about checking off, a number in our program. But our aim is to serve 2,500 people, and then we hope that we can secure or build or obtain housing for at least 1,000 of the people that we serve. Another component of our program is that we have members that work with volunteers, and so we aim to recruit, train, or manage 550 volunteers on either an episodic or a recurring basis. And that's when you are recruiting volunteers to do the similar work that you do. So recruiting volunteers to build homes, managing volunteers that are teaching financial literacy classes, things like that. So if you have volunteers at your organization that just, work in like in-kind donations or like IT work or something like that, you're not going to report on those volunteers because that doesn't tie to our program model. So again, these are the 4 components to our program and the activities that you provide, no matter what category they fall under. These are what you are delivering to each household that you serve, and the households that you're serving are what we are reporting on, in addition to the services that you are delivering to them. So we'll show you what that means in a couple minutes. But yeah, we're not only reporting on that we're doing case management, it's who are we providing case management to. So to sum it up, we are reporting the number of people served, their basic information. It's all confidential. You're not sending me any identifying information. We do collect some demographics, but we'll talk about that more in a few minutes. We capture the services that you provided, and then we're also counting unduplicated households. So if you are at a member that or at a site that has multiple members, you are going to collaborate together to make sure that you are only reporting that household one time, even if multiple members are serving that household. We report on the number of people housed, and that can be through obtaining a housing voucher or having their house built or repaired, if they've received rent or utility assistance, if they've secured housing placement or assistance through your program. That's just one of several ways that we can house people and what we say what we consider to be housing people. So we'll get into more detail about that, of course, in a few minutes. And then again, those volunteers that you recruit, train, or manage to readily give their time, skills, and expertise. So on the 15th of every month, that is when you are going to be reporting. You will complete performance measure forms on or by the 15th of every month, because I know the 15th, might fall on a Saturday or Sunday or a holiday during the year. So I don't want you to get behind in reporting. I also don't want to miss out on households that you've been serving, and I think that can easily happen when we leave reporting to, January or February. And I think it's really important to get in the habit of like, okay, this is the 15th. The 15th is coming up. We're going to get this reporting in to Homes for All. Okay, so where are we reporting? For housing services, the first thing that you do is fill out what we call a performance measure form. This is a fillable PDF or a Word document that you can download. It changes every year, so there is a current 2020-2021 form that's in your member manual that we sent out, and it's also on our website. And then everything that you fill out on that form is verifiable. There is some supporting documentation that you'll indicate on the form, but that's not something we collect. That just has to stay on site at your service site. We don't collect that, and we'll talk more about that in a couple minutes. Then you will also work in America Learn for reporting on housing services. You will upload that paper form up to 2 times for each household. There is a few data entry fields that you'll have to fill out, but then the rest of that is taken care of by us. For volunteers, it's a little easier. You fill out a form for us once a month. Excuse me. Again, it's going to be a fillable PDF or a Word document. All the information has to be verifiable again on your service site or at your service site. There is an updated form for 2020-2021. Again, that's in your member manual and it's on our website. But if you're reporting on volunteers, all you have to do is send that to us once a month on or by the 15th. You don't have to put anything in America Learn. We'll take care of the rest. You'll just send it to us, and all of that form is accurate and on file at your site. So we do need that new form each year. If your site has old forms on hand, from previous members, please ignore those. Do not use those. You'll just have to do them again, and we don't want that for you. So please make sure you're using the form that's in your member manual or on our website. Okay, so we're going to dive in. We're going to focus first on reporting on housing services. Housing services forms, those apply to all members. So if you are, homeless services, you're going to fill this out. If you are housing development, you're going to fill it out, or if you're construction. Then we'll go over the volunteer form, and then I'll actually do like a whole tutorial in America Learn so you can see where this all goes. So give me 1 second to adjust. Okay, I'm going to turn my video off. Okay. I turn my video back on. Okay. Oh my gosh, you guys, I cannot see if you can see this.
Right now, on my screen, I can just see your slide that says how we report. Like I can see
Okay,
PowerPoint pulled up on your computer, but
perfect. Okay, thank you for that insight.
I'm not sure. Hoping that we're looking at. But
Yeah, hopefully in like 2 seconds you see a PDF that says performance measure form.
yes, that has just been pulled up.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Um, all right, so this is the performance measure form that we will use when we're reporting on housing services. We complete one form per household. So if it's a single person, you know, a 2-person household, a 7-person household, whatever it is, you're only going to do one form per household. The first thing that you're going to want to do, of course, is fill out your name. So that is you as the member. Oh. Then you are going to fill out your service site. So that is where you're placed at. So we'll just pretend that I'm, you know, at HHCK. And then you're going to create what we call an identifier or a code name. And this is where this confidential information comes into play so that we can collect this data without people's names, so that we're still able to figure out who this household is if we were ever having to verify that data at a later date after your service year is over. So you can use a household identifier that is maybe pulled from your site. So your site may use like certain, you know, IDs or code names. What comes to mind is like Kentucky HMIS. There are numbers that are, you know, in that system. You can use those numbers. Some of our sites use something called Counselor Max, and I think, you know, households get assigned an ID that way. Or you can make up an ID following guidance from us. So if your household doesn't have an ID or code name that they use, you can use your initials and the initials of the client. So I'm going to pretend that my, you know, household name, the initials are WR. And then you can use the date that you started working with them to, like, you know, make it a little more specific if you want. So we can do like today's August 13th. So we can do 08/13. That might be helpful, especially if you have, you know, multiple households that have the same initials, to keep them separate. Then we are going to apply or enter the date that you started serving the client, the date that AmeriCorps started with the client. So it's your client or your household may already be in services at your organization. That's fine, but I only care about the date that you started your, you know, professional relationship with them. So that date is always going to be after August 1st, 2020, because we're only focusing on the AmeriCorps program year, which runs from August 1st, 2020 to July 31st, 2021. The next two questions: are you helping this household maintain their housing? So this can mean, are you working with a household that's, you know, formerly homeless and just, you know, making sure their housing is retained? Are you helping this household with rental assistance or utility assistance, whatever that may be? If the household is already housed, you're going to click yes. If they are not housed currently, you are going to click no. If you are helping the household transition into housing, so maybe they are experiencing homelessness, you are going to check yes. But for the purposes of this tutorial, we're saying that we're helping the household maintain their housing. So I'm going to check no, because we're not helping them transition. We also need to make sure that the households that we are counting as being served by AmeriCorps members are eligible. So that means that they are considered low income or low wealth or zero income. And that's not to say that you can't serve people outside of that demographic. Just for the purposes of reporting on our program, we're only counting those individuals. So there's a number of ways to document that they are eligible to be counted. This is what I was talking about earlier. Like, you have to choose one of these options, but you don't have to attach the documentation. Like, I don't need to see somebody's, current credit report or their SNAP eligibility letter or anything like that. That documentation, though, should stay on file at your service site, because a lot of that is already collected by your site for their own files and things like that. So because we're helping this household maintain housing, my example is going to be that they have a past due bill, so they need assistance with their rent or utilities. So I'm going to just check that box, and then I'm going to move on to just general household information. So when we get to this demographic information, I want you to know that we have spent a lot of time thinking intentionally and thoughtfully as a program, along with our external evaluator team, to identify, whether we truly even need this information. We are in the middle of a 3-year evaluation cycle, and the data that we are collecting on this form helps us to compare the households that we are working with to households that are not currently receiving services or interventions from AmeriCorps members. So this has been established that we do need this information. It's not just, collecting it for whatever. It does serve a purpose. So again, you don't have to put the household's name. You can just say adult number 1, because all of you know how to type better than me right now. We'll say that it is a 2-adult household, and there are 3 children. Then you're going to collect their age or their birth date. So when I say age or birthday, if they're an adult, we're considering that to be 18 or over, and for children, we are considering that to be 17 and younger. So I'm just going to make up ages. When we get to race and ethnicity, I want you to be more deliberate in how you capture this information. Race and ethnicity are 2 separate groups. They can't be lumped in together because they're not the same thing. So ethnic group, we can define that as socially distinguishable from other groups and has developed its own subculture, which can include nationality or religion or language, many different components, and it has a shared feeling of peoplehood. The concept of race is often problematic in that it's been defined as a distinct human type based on physical characteristics. But for a lot of social scientists and scientists, race is considered a social construct, and all races are simply a variation of a single human species. So why I want you to be deliberate in how you're collecting this information. I want you to allow your household to self-describe. I don't And then I want you to record the responses that they give you. You do not need to require a response if a client chooses not to answer. And if that happens, you are not going to assume or observe. I would rather you leave those columns blank. You're also not going to answer those columns if you don't even ask the question. But if you are going to ask it, which I ask that you do, I want you to ask it thoughtfully, such as, in your own words, how would you describe your race? In your own words, how would you describe your ethnicity? And then again, record what people respond to you. For additional household information, we're asking about people's veteran status, the number of active military in the household, their monthly household income, that can, range from zero income to, whatever. You'll also select the type that fits best for their household type. So whether it's 1 adult, 2 adults, 1 parent, 2 parent, or other. Sometimes there are, multi-generations living in a household, people that have chosen to make a family and make up their own household unit, whatever it may be. Is your client receiving services because of a disaster or a pandemic? You will, select that. And then you're going to tell us about the services that you provided to them. So if you, there could be multiple on here. So we're going to say that I, as the AmeriCorps member, provided intake and assessment services, and then I provided rent or utility assistance to them. And then because we provided that rent or utility assistance, we may offer like after services case management. So I'm going to select that too. So at this point, I'm going to stop because the rest of this talks about what happens next. So I'm going to move on to entering this into America Learns and what I mean when I say that. So I'm going to save this file. You can title this whatever makes sense to you. And then what happens after you fill this form out, you're going to fill it out in America Learns. Can you all see the America Learns website now?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. So if you haven't already been in America Learns, this is the really, bright colored website that we use. So on your left side of the screen, when you log in, you'll see, your name and your space. So Caitlin's space. This is our test account, what we use for training purposes. So that's how you see test. To report, you will click the third option or the second option, add new clients and volunteers. You'll see 3 blue hyperlinks and you'll click add new or connect to existing clients or volunteers. Then you'll select a group and you want to make sure you're selecting the group that's 2020-2021 because that's our program year. We're adding a new client or a new household, so we're going to click that radio button. And here is where you can see those or that guidance on how to create an identifier or a code name. So again, if your site has their own identifying system, you can use what your site has, or you can create your own. So I'm typed in what I wrote on the form. I'm going to click continue. And then this is where you're going to upload the form and do that data entry that I talked about a little bit ago. So you're going to type in what the name of the file is or whatever you want to name it. So I'm going to do, you know, CSWR, you know, whatever makes sense to you. I'm going to call it the start just because I only filled out the start of services with the household. I'm not reporting on their housing status yet. So again, you're going to select the date that you started serving with the client. So we're going to click today. You can also type in that date as well. And then you're going to select or type in the total number of children in the household, the total number of adults in the household, and then you're going to answer that question again on how are you serving that client. Are you helping them maintain housing or transition into housing? So I'm helping this household maintain their housing. And at this time, you are done until the client's services stop or until they are housed. So we're going to click submit. Oh, yep. See, it'll tell you if you didn't do something right. I'm going to attach the file that I talked about. Oh, good Lord. Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay. Now you'll see that you've added all the information that you need to, and you're going to click submit. Now, if you are uploading multiple household reports at once or just one, it is so important for you to remember to click submit for review after you have entered all of the forms and after you've already clicked submit once. If you don't click submit for review, all of these households that are listed as pending enrollment are going to disappear, and you're just going to have to do it over again. And that would be really terrible and annoying. So just make sure you click submit for review. And then it goes to us, me and Holly, and we make sure that everything is filled out, you know, as best as it can be, and then we take care of it for the housing services start for the rest of that. Okay, so now what happens after your client or your household gets housed or your services stop with them? This is when you come back to your form and you demonstrate that the client acquired or transitioned into housing, whether you help them maintain housing through one of 4 options. So this can be through the lease or mortgage, or a certificate of occupancy, or you can use 2 forms that are created and available from our office. And those are on our website, which I'm going to hop over to real quick to show you. This is what our website looks like. Everything that you're going to want to look at is under this Homes for All AmeriCorps tab. And the tab that you're going to check out most often this year is the current member resources page. On here, you'll see member manual, orientation and training packet, and these forms that we were talking about. And then down here, you will see program reporting, and that's, again, you'll have another option to download the forms and the additional ways that you can verify that your client's services were completed or that they, you know, maintained or secured housing. So the first option you can choose is beneficiary self-verification of housing. This is a form that is going to let the household certify that they have been housed in a way that's affordable to them, and you sign off on it and your site supervisor signs off on it. So it's, you know, pretty standard basic information. Okay, you guys, sorry, this is a whole mess. Okay, your other option that you can use is service site verification of housing. It's a pretty similar document. It'll just take your signature and your site signature saying that the household is housed in safe and affordable housing. So again, once the household obtains housing, you're going to select one of those options. Probably the easiest one, I'll just be quite honest, is to have that signed verification form from your site. And then you'll add the date that services were completed. So we'll say that we provided that rent and utility assistance to this household. So we're going to say that was a pretty quick turnaround. And we're going to say that was done on 8/20. And then you ideally are able to, you know, print this out and sign off on it. But if not, we know that, you know, it might not be an option since we're in COVID times. But once you get to that point, after you filled all this out, that's when you're going to re-upload this form to America Learns. So you'll go back into your America Learns account. And when you click add new volunteers and clients, you're going to instead click the first option, seeing the client. Oh, God, you guys, I'm so sorry. I need to approve all clients that go in. So right now you're not going to be able to see it. I would have to approve it. But what happens is you go back in and you click the blue hyperlink and then just attach that page again, saying that, you know, showing that they've been housed in safe or decent affordable housing. Okay, the reason that I'm asking you to upload these on the 15th of every month is so that we are capturing everybody that you serve. I don't want anybody to get left behind. And it's also helpful to just see who you're serving in the moment, because sometimes, unfortunately, people do leave services before we complete them or before they're housed. And even if that happens, we still capture that you have served them. So I don't want you to, you know, not report on somebody that you served in October and then they leave services in November and then you don't include them because they didn't get housed. We're still capturing people that we're serving, even if we don't get them to the house point. Okay, so we're going to move on to volunteer reporting. Again, volunteer reporting is a lot easier than housing services. Not everyone, not all members are going to work with volunteers, and that is fine. But for those of you that do, we will need this form from you once a month. So all you'll do is, again, fill out your name, your service site, and the reporting period. So if you're reporting on volunteers that you trained, recruited, or managed in August, that is what you'll fill out, and you'll submit it to us on or by September 15th. You will be able to create a volunteer ID if you want to respect their confidentiality, or you can just put their last name in. You can also report on volunteer groups instead of having to list out all, 15 volunteers. So let's say that I worked with college that sent, a spring break group. Well, I guess it'd be fall break, let's say that. And they sent 15 volunteers to us. Recurring basis means that they are going to come back and volunteer with you more than one time. So we'll say that they're an episodic group because they're only coming to us once a year in August. And then the number of hours that they've served. So if you had 15 volunteers serve 3 hours each, you're going to log 45 hours. Then say you have a banker that comes in and teaches financial literacy classes, once a month throughout your service year. They are considered a recurring volunteer because they're coming back. So we'll say that this banker is Kenton Bottom, and he is only one volunteer. And he is a recurring volunteer, and he teaches a 3-hour class once a month. So we're only going to say that he served, or we're going to put that he served 3 hours. And then when he comes back in September on your September report, you will fill out him in that, form too, the number of hours he served then. So this is the form that you are filling out, again, once a month, and you are sending to our office on or by the 15th of every month. And that is the very, very, very quick tutorial. And I know there are going to be, site-specific questions or member-specific questions. So I'm going to open it up for questions. And hopefully we can get your questions answered, but also we are able to talk to you about this after, especially because a lot of you just started, serving this week, and you may not have even started working with households yet. So we'll check in with you in, September to see where we're at and, provide more guidance at that time too. So Hannah has a question. Just to clarify, we only submit forms once a month if we get new clients or volunteers. Okay, Hannah brings up a great question. So my ask is that you fill out this housing services performance measure form as you are seeing clients. Add it to whatever intake or assessment process your site has, instead of having to go back and fill this out, at a later date. So you can absolutely upload these forms to America Learns, like at the end of the day or after you do the intake, whatever system makes sense for you. But you will need to at least get all of the households that you've served that month in by the 15th of the following month. And same for volunteers. Does that answer your question, Hannah? Okay, yeah, great. Yes, great clarification. You don't have to resubmit a form every month for every household that you work with. You're only adding the new households that you're working with each month and then updating each month if your household was successfully placed into housing. Any other questions?
I have a question on. I have a couple questions on just specific details.
Yeah, is this Hunter?
Yes, this is Hunter.
Okay, this makes sense. Thanks.
So in terms of identifying what does it mean to be a household, we serve clients who are homeless but travel in groups. Would you be a household because they're traveling as a unit, or what would that look like in terms of in terms of,
Yeah.
household?
I think a way I do that is when you get into housing or when you're housed, who will reside with you, who will be in your household with you, and then however they answer that is how I would fill it out.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. And then my other question is, in terms of like saving the files onto our computer, is there protocols that you ask us to have in terms of like encrypting these files? Should we save them as like protected? Like what is the security that you ask us to do on our end in terms of
Yeah. So I think most often members normally, like if you're serving on site, most members just print it off and write it in and then scan it and upload it. I didn't have that like ability to do that today, so that's why I didn't do it. America Learns is like a secure encrypted website, so like it's not gonna go anywhere. But I don't have any set guidelines for encrypting what you want to do on that.
And then my last question, sorry to have so many.
No apologies.
If we're working with clients that have come to our services for multiple years and have worked with previous AmeriCorps, if their services weren't completed and we're filling this out as a new AmeriCorps, still trying to get into housing, for example, is there anything that we need to do to close the open file that the other AmeriCorps might have opened?
Yeah, great question. There's not, because this form is like all about your relationship with the household in this program year. So it's a lot of paperwork on your site as a whole if it's every year, but yeah, it's just about you as the member.
Okay.
Thank you. Good question. Okay, Jesse asks, I normally do my volunteers the week of the month. Jesse, you are so hands-on and awesome with reporting. I know you'll get us what we need. So whatever date works for you for sending that report in, I just want it at least 12 times a month or not a month, 12 times a program year for volunteers. Any other questions? I know this is a pretty dry subject.
Hello, this is Stephen Collins. So for construction teams, does this form apply to them as well?
Yep, it's every member serving a household. So my recommendation to you is, I know like your services probably last a lot, or not last a lot longer, but last longer. So you would just still like choose an eligibility documentation on why they're getting services through your organization. And then services that you've provided, did you do new home construction or major repair or renovation or minor repairs or rehab?
Okay, so in my case, I would have to, if we are servicing or building a home, we'd have to identify, well, this is home, is it going to belong to someone?
Yeah. And
okay.
I may be off, but I think Honk has like already is. Oh no, you guys.
Right.
I think.
Because I think we do have a home that isn't assigned to anyone at this time.
Yeah. So just fill out this form for me once you get a household into housing or identified.
Okay. So these forms apply to specific persons or families and not homes, physical homes.
Correct. Yeah.
Got
we
it.
just call them households to like have like a broader category because like we have they call them clients or beneficiaries or customers or whatever. So yeah, we're focusing like on the household itself as opposed to an actual unit. Yeah.
Okay. That provides much clarity for me. Thank you.
Good. Fine.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I'm with the Lexington Fair Housing Council as my service site, and they more deal with the legality around like fair housing and housing discrimination, not really getting people into houses. So like, how would I go about this on this form? Because like I see the intake and assessment services and case management, but like I don't know if that fulfills what you guys are looking for in terms of the service I would provide, if that would like be accurate with the form.
Yeah, you guys are my like unicorn site. So yeah, you will fill this out. I will say I know that fair housing does get a lot of calls, and you don't necessarily have to fill this out on every single person you talk to. But if someone does, you end up doing like, you know, more than, you know, like an initial phone call with them and like actually provide like something of substance to them, you will fill this out. But I know that you won't always have this like proof of housing or that they were like officially maintained housing during your year.
Okay. I'll just message you when I do my first one, just to make sure.
Okay, that's good. And Abby brings up a great point that you only have to fill this form out on households that you have like meaningful, substantive engagement with. Like it's not every single intake call that you do or any person that you talk to. So when I was an AmeriCorps member, I did housing counseling in Eastern Kentucky, and I probably got 15 to 20 phone calls a day. So I was not filling this form out on every single person that I talked to. It was only when they came in and we moved on to, you know, doing the repair application or the new home application. And I started working with them like on a more individual specific basis. Because I know for some of you, that's all you would be doing is filling this form out, and we don't want that.
So
any other?
This is Hunter again. Just a quick question. I work at a homeless youth shelter, and so if we have a youth come in and they are mostly wanting immediate services like food, showering, or things of that nature, even if they're not looking to transition to housing in that moment, I would still fill this form out, or I would still do a report for it, correct?
You only have to fill this household report out when you are providing like housing services to them or housing related services. So I would say if they're just coming in for, like you said, like emergency basic needs, I wouldn't worry about this because you'd have to collect like a lot of stuff for just like an incidental basis.
Okay.
If you want to fill it out more often, like, you know, but I don't have to have that.
Okay. So this is mostly just for like transitioning into housing or maintaining. Okay. Just making sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a good way to remember it, this might be helpful for everyone, is like that allowable services list. You can pull from that, or in your member manual, we have like a list of what we call housing interventions. So if you're providing any of those interventions to them, then you'll know that you should complete a form on that household.
I had another question really quick. This is Abigail again.
Yeah.
So I noticed with the like forms of identification with the fair housing, I know we work with domestic abuse victims. They're not necessarily always gonna like, because I saw in there where it said Section 8 and like stuff like that to show. Whenever I get documentation, is Elise going to be able to fulfill the information you guys are needing, or do they need to like, I'm just sort of confused on that part.
Gotcha, I see what you're saying. Yeah, let's talk after, but I think that would suffice. I just need documentation that proves that they're eligible to be counted under us. And so like not every person that you would serve would maybe be considered low income or low wealth. Like anybody can experience housing discrimination. Obviously, like it's disproportionate to, you know, certain groups of people. But yeah, we can talk after.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. So this is your member manual. I hope you all can see this, but we listed a few interventions on there of what, you know, you can consider to be why you would need to fill a form out. So if you're assisting them with, you know, building their home, rehabbing, weatherization, repairing, assisting with searches for housing, housing applications, referrals, rent subsidies, loan assistance, anything like that, you can be like, okay, yeah, this is what I'm providing to them. This is when I should fill a form out. But I know that you are going to serve clients in more ways than these interventions, just because that's the nature of the field that we are in. So I don't want you to think you can't serve them just because they're coming in for something else. But that's when you would fill a form out. Any other questions? Okay, again, I know that was a little dry, and it was a little more difficult to train online with this. So if you want to set up a one-on-one call with me, I'm happy to talk more about this and apply specifically to your position and what you're doing at your site. We can check in next week, or, you know, even into September once you get, you know, really started working with households. This will also be recorded, so if you want to watch it again or listen to it, you will be able to do that. And then, yeah, just check out the resources we have on HHCK's website, what's in your member manual. And with that, I'm going to end this presentation. I'm going to leave the call open because we have an optional session at 11 o'clock for landlord outreach, trying to find landlords to work with, work with, you know, housing vouchers, or even just get your households into housing, even if it's without a voucher. So that's at 11, and at 1 is when you will all come back to be with us for our fair housing training at 1 o'clock with the Lexington Fair Housing Council. So with that, you have about an hour and a half if you're not coming to the 11 o'clock session. No, 2.5 hours. I'm not really good with time, so. Okay, we'll see you at either 11, and then we'll definitely see you all at 1 o'clock.